In this video, you will learn how to use intervals to construct a major scale starting from any note in all 12 keys. And you will also learn why certain notes are in the scales, why we label them the way we do. By the end of the video, you'll also learn how to use that same simple method to construct 7 of the most essential scales that you need to know and be able to do that in any of the 12 keys starting from any note. You can get a free download of all the sheet music using this video from the link in the description below. If you're new to this channel, my name's Buster Birch. I've been playing professionally and teaching music for over 30 years. I've written and published a lot of music tuition books for different instruments which are available worldwide in print and for download. I also run online workshops and courses and have many hours of video lessons available on my website and lots more free stuff on my YouTube channel. If you find this helpful, please give it a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button. That would really help me out. Thanks for watching. Okay, so I'm going to assume you've downloaded the sheet music now, and I'm going to take you through the example here and to show you how this all works and talk you through it. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a series of intervals. We're going to use tones and semitones, whole steps and half steps if you're in America, and we're going to do that. I'm going to construct a major scale, and we're going to go through this sequence. You may be familiar with this already, but you may not quite have fully grasped the kind of consequences of it and why it's such a useful thing and it's such a useful way to think about when you're trying to find the notes of your major scales. I think one of the problems of learning music is that students tend to be taught their scales kind of by rote. So the idea is you just have to try and memorize this sequence of notes without fully understanding or maybe completely grasping the underlying pattern and sequence that ties it all together. Because as with a lot of music theory, there is a beautiful logic to all this that oversees the whole thing. And if you can get your head around that and understand what's going on, then you can work in any key that applies all through all 12 keys. And I think that's a really useful way to think. So let's get started. So all scales are constructed using a series of intervals. All scales. This is what we're going to learn here applies to any scale, and I'm going to show you that later in the video. We're going to apply the same process to some different scales. So for a major scale, the sequence is tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone. You may have learned that, as I said, but maybe not quite fully appreciate it. And what this sequence gives us is the DNA code of the major scale. So essentially, if you start on any note and play that sequence of intervals, then what you'll get is the major scale of that starting note. So let's try it. Okay, let's start on an F. I'm going to play an F. And then I'm going to go up through that sequence of intervals. I'm going to go up a tone, and I'm going to go up another tone, and I'm going to up another tone, semitone, sorry. And I'm going to go a tone, 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 semitone. And I get back to the top. Yeah, back to where I started. That's my octave. So that's my major scale. So one of the important things is to listen to the sound of that scale. So I think this is really important when we're doing theory, is that we mustn't forget, and that's why doing it at the piano is so good, because you need to learn the sound of those scales, not just the maths of it, yeah? So if you listen to that scale, it has its own distinct flavour or quality. Which is why all of the 12 major scales all sound the same. They're all built using the same DNA sequence. So it's important to know the theory, but it's more important to know how it sounds. So if you play a wrong note, you should clearly hear that it doesn't fit in that scale. You should, I mean, I think most people can hear, yeah? And the reason is we've become familiar with the sound or the flavour of that kind of sequence of intervals. All of the different major and minor scales work in the same way, but they just have a different sequence of intervals, which we'll look at on the next sheet. Each type of scale has its own DNA sequence, which can then be transposed to all 12 keys. So this is where the magic comes in. So as an exercise, try to construct a major scale from each of the following starting notes. So we've started on the F. Let's start on the D now. So I'm going to start up here. Okay, so that's my first note. That's my D. So that means I'm going to now play a D major scale if I apply that sequence of intervals. So I'm going to go up a tone, going to go up a tone, go up a semitone, go up a tone, go up a tone, go up another tone, go up a semitone, and I hit the top note, the D again. I've done an octave there, yeah? So let's play those notes again. Yeah, can you hear that that's the sound? It's the same sound as the other scale because they're both the same type of scale, even though we started from a different place. All we've done is we've transposed that sequence of intervals to a different starting point. And it's not until you put this through a few different keys that you start to really hear how that works and get the idea. So let's do one more. Let's start on a B now. Okay, so there's my starting note. A B natural. So again, there's no key signatures written in. So we're just working these notes out note by note, and I think that's a really good way to start. So if we go up a tone from there, go up a tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone. So a bit quicker, and what you get is this. Yeah. So that's why those notes are in the B major scale. That's why. So that's my B major scale starting from B. Let's do one more, starting in an E flat. So now I've got an E flat. I'm going to go a tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone. Once more. Yeah. Again, they sound the same. You've got the same quality. What I like to think of music in terms of food. So for me, it's like a flavour. There's a certain flavour to that. Yeah. One more. Let's start on C sharp. C sharp. Everybody freaks out with C sharp, but it's not a problem, is it? You can start on any note, and if you apply this same principle, you'll get the major scale. Here we go. C sharp. So tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone. And that gives us those notes. That's how we get those notes for the C sharp major scale. Okay, very good. And last one, A flat. Let's start on an A flat. So sharps or flats or natural notes, it doesn't make any difference. Okay, whatever note you start on, you can get the major scale of that note. So let's go up a tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone. Same sound, same flavour, same quality to it. And it's because that's the DNA code of the major scale. Start on any note and you can find the notes of the major scale. Okay, and then there's 12 different notes, so there's 12 different scales. Now, this is the interesting bit. So let me just slide this up now. We're going to look at what I call the spelling of the scales. Okay, and this is something that can often confuse people. So when we spell the notes of the scale, it's like, what label do we put on the notes? Because as we know, and if you haven't seen my previous video, do go back and look at the one on accidentals and articulations. That'll make this a bit clearer. So any note can have more than one name, and we can have sharps and flats and naturals for like lots of different notes can have lots of different names. All the notes can have lots of different names. So how do we know which one to choose? Okay, so as it says on the sheet here, students are often confused about the spelling of notes in a scale. When is it a sharp? When is it a flat? Why is it a G flat and not an F sharp? Because it's the same note, right? So what we could call that could be an F sharp, or it could be a G flat. So how do you know which is the right spelling, the right label to put on that note within the context of the scale that you're using? And so there's a simple rule to this, okay? And that is that you have to use one of each letter of the alphabet in your scale. And that's it. That's all there is to it. It's as simple as that. So keep that in mind. You can't go far wrong. So if we're in the scale of F major, so let's go back to our F major. We'll start on an F. We'll find our notes. So we'll go up the tones to semitones. Tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone. Okay, so it's pretty clear with most of these notes, but when I get to this note here, okay, I have the option. I could call that an A sharp or a B flat. Now, how do I know which is the correct label? Well, as it says here on the sheet, that this has to be a B flat, okay, because if I called it A sharp in that sequence of notes, what you'd have is you'd have an F, G, A sharp, C, D, E, F. Okay, now that's a problem because we've got an A, and so if I call that A sharp, I've used the letter A twice, and I've not used the letter B. Okay, so that's why that note, in this context of an F major scale, that's why that note is referred to as a B flat and not an A sharp, because then what we've got is F, G, A, B flat, C, D, E, F. And there you can see I've used every letter, all 7 letters, and I've not doubled up on any of the letters. Now, some scales use lots of sharps or flats, and so sometimes they need to use a double sharp or a double flat. Again, I went through that in much more detail in my other video, Accidentals and Alterations, so do check that out. But they still use one of each letter, okay? So this is why we end up with things like an E sharp. Yeah, E sharp, that is, E sharp. If we're in the key of F sharp major, F sharp, G sharp, A sharp, B, C sharp, D sharp, E sharp, F sharp. I can't call that F because I've got an F sharp and I need some type of an E. Okay, so that's why that's an E sharp. Okay, fantastic. Right, let's just look at the next sheet now. And what I'm going to do is just very simply, quickly show you how that can then apply to other scales. So we've established that we have a DNA code, we have a sequence of tones and semitones, and that is what gives us the pitch for each scale. And then we use the label of the letters to determine what we call the notes. And that's how we construct our major scale. Well, you can use the exact same process to construct other scales. Yeah. So we just have different sequence of tones and semitones. And so I've written them all out for you. I've got 7, what I call the 7 essential scales here. Okay. Okay, 7 essential scales that you need to learn. And every scale needs to be learned in all 12 keys. So there's 12 versions of every scale. But if you use this method, then it's much easier because it will find the notes for you. You don't have to learn all that stuff kind of by rote, by memory. It's not a memory thing. There's a logical reason as to why those notes are there, and that will help you find the notes of each scale. So we've done the major scale. Let's look at melodic minor, next one down. And so what I've done is I've written the notes in, but I've also written the tones and semitones. Okay, so can you see we've just got a slightly different sequence now. So if we start on a C, what we've got, and we go up a tone, then we go up a semitone, and then we go a tone, 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 semitone. And that gives us a melodic minor scale. Yeah, let's try that on a different starting note. So if we start on, I don't know, let's start on a G, okay? Okay, so let's remember what our sequence is. We go up a tone, we go up a semitone, we go up a tone, 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 semitone. That's G melodic minor, because I started on G, but I played the same sequence of tones and semitones, and that gave me the notes of my G melodic minor scale. Let's try one more. I think you get the idea. So let's try the natural minor scale, okay? So natural minor scale, just take that down a little bit so you can see it on the screen there. Natural minor scale has got a slightly different sequence again, because they have to have a different, if it was the same sequence, it wouldn't be that scale, it would be the other scale. So the natural minor scale is tone, semitone, tone, tone, semitone, tone, tone. Okay? All right, so it might seem like that's a bit, but get the idea now, right? So once you know that sequence of tones and semitones, that will give you all the notes of that particular scale. So the natural minor scale, tone, semitone, tone, tone, semitone, tone, tone. Let's try it. So let's start on the C, which we've got here. So just to check, so we go up a tone, and we go up a semitone, and we go up a tone, we go up a tone, and then we get a semitone, and then we get a tone, and then we get a tone. And that's our C natural minor scale, because I started on a C, and I played that sequence. Yeah, let's start on a different note. Let's try, I don't know, randomly, A flat. There we go. And let's play that same sequence. So we go a tone, semitone, tone, tone, semitone, tone, tone. That's my A flat natural minor scale. Can you hear? And again, it's that thing of hearing the sound of the scale. And each one of these scales has its own distinct flavour and sound to it and quality to it. And it's because of that sequence of tones and semitones. So there you go. That's 7 of your essential scales there. And that gives you this sequence of tones and semitones, which means you can then work out the notes of those scales in all 12 keys. So my kind of takeaway message here is don't be afraid of hard keys. Yeah. If you're thinking in this method, you can see they're just all the same thing. There's just 12 of everything. There's 12 versions of it. But if you're thinking in intervals, I think that's a much easier way to think. Obviously, you've got to learn what the notes are. With practice over time, you will memorize those scales and those notes. Piano's a great instrument to sit and do some of this work on because you can see the shapes and patterns there, which you can't necessarily on wind instruments and string instruments to a certain extent. It's a similar thing with shapes and patterns. But I think the shapes and patterns are clear on the keyboard. Anyway, I hope that helps. And if you've got any comments, please leave them below. And do get in touch if you've got any more questions about that. Thanks very much. If you're looking for some practice or teaching resources for scales, then I have this really useful interactive series of books on Apple Books. My students have found them really, really good to work with, and so I thought I'd just show you them here now. So there's 7 books in the series, and they're all interactive. They include everything's touch screen, and all of the audio is embedded in. So basically, they work more like apps than books, and they're very much priced like apps as well. There's, as I say, there's 7 in the series, and they work on Apple devices. So if you don't have any Apple devices, and I'm sorry, these are not for you, they're not going to work. But if you do have any Apple devices, a desktop computer, a laptop computer, an iPad or an iPhone, then you can download these immediately from the Apple Store. There's a link below which will take you to my website, where you can purchase from there, busterbirch.co.uk/books. So so this series, that what I've done is I've made some practice play along exercises for scales in all 12 keys and for virtually all instruments. So I've produced a series of 7 different books, which cover what I call the essential scales. So those are major scales, melodic minor scales, harmonic minor scales, natural minor scales. There's minor pentatonics, major pentatonics, and the blues scale. And each book is one scale, but it's in all 12 keys and all 4 transpositions. So basically, any instrument can use the book. And I'll just show you how they work. And I've also created a compilation. So a book which is all 7 books in one book, and if you buy that, then there's a 25% discount on getting the set. The other thing you need to know is that this one we're going to look at here, the minor pentatonic scales book, is completely free. It's the full version. It's not a sample. It's the complete full version. So you can download that for nothing, absolutely gratis, so that you can try the book out and see if you like it. And if you do, then maybe you can purchase some of the other ones. So let's look at it. So I'll just show you first of all on my iPad here. This is how they look on the iPad, and this is, the iPad's kind of the thing they're designed for, and that can just sit on your music stand, and the audio that comes out is loud enough to play along with any instrument. So as I say, these are for any instrument, not just piano. So let's have a look inside. So each book comes with a little preface and an introduction. So in the introduction, it talks a little bit about the theory of scales and how they work, and it uses this interval sequence, which I'll talk about. And then what you've essentially got is you've got concert pitch in one chapter, B flat pitch, in another chapter, E flat pitch, and bass clef. So everything is written for 4 different transpositions. So let's look at the concert pitch. And what you get for each book is you get the scale. It tells you what the notes are at the top. And then you get the notation of the scale written out. with the scale going up and going down as you would normally practice it. But what these books have got, these interactive books have got, are some embedded audio files for you to play along with. So let's click on the screen. You can't see my cursor, but these are touch screens. So if you're using the iPad, you just touch it, or obviously on the computer, you use the cursor. So I'm just going to click on the first embedded audio track here and show you what you get. So you get a little counting, and then you get the audio of the exercise, and the idea is that you play along with it. So every exercise is 4 times, and here we go. So our counting. So this is our C minor pentatonic in concert pitch. So anybody playing concert pitch instrument would play along and practice their scales along with the audio of the scales. And as I say, it's 4 times around. Then what you get is every single bit of notation has 4 tempos for the audio. So this is what my students love about this. Is it's like a video game where you try and level up to the next level. So if they can play 4 times all the way through with no mistakes, then they can do the next tempo. And the idea is it gets faster each time, and we end up at 180 beats per minute, which is kind of fast enough really for anyone to do their scales, I think. Now the other thing that you've got included here, which a lot of students don't do, is practicing the scales going down and then up. And I think that's a really important thing to learn your scales, so you don't just do them in one direction. So let's just look at this. We've got one here. So there's the same notes going down and going up 4 times around, very simple. And then finally what we also get for every single scale is we get the arpeggios. So these are based for jazz musicians, but obviously anyone can use these. And in jazz we tend to use sevenths on the chords, so rather than just triads, these include the sevenths on all the arpeggios. Okay, so that's the C minor pentatonic, and then all you do, you swipe across and you get the next key. So we're in F minor pentatonic, and it follows the cycle of fourths as you go around, which is a great way to practice your scales. So it goes through all 12 keys, so that goes right the way through around the cycle, all 12 keys with the same scale. And then what you get on the next chapter now, so this would be for the B flat pitch instruments. And the idea is essentially what's happened is all the audio tracks have been transposed. So obviously the notation's the same. So if a trumpet player or a tenor sax player wants to play along with this, then the audio will match the sound that comes out of their instrument. So everything's transposed for B flat, E flat, and then bass clef. We've got the bass clef notation, and we've got everything down an octave as well. So let's look at bass clef. And now one of the really useful things about these books, and one of the reasons that I did them, is a common error I found with a lot of students when they're practicing scales is they tend to speed up on the bits they know and then slow down on the bits they don't know so well. So there's your bass clef there where everything's written in bass clef, and the audio is obviously in the lower register. So the idea is, by having an audio track to play along with every single exercise at different speeds, what it does is it forces the students to practice their scales in tempo, in time. And that's a really, really important thing for students to do on any instrument whatsoever. And that's why I've produced all these books. As I said at the beginning, there's a little bit of theory about how scales works as well, using the interval sequence. There's a book for every single of the 7 scales, and then there's a compilation book with all 7 books in the one book. So do check them out. You can download them immediately. You can get this minor pentatonic books completely free and have a play about with it and see what you think. And like I say, if you want to get the rest, then you can just purchase them from my website. The link's below, busterbirch.co.uk/books. Thanks very much, and do let me know what you think of them. If you've got any comments, any feedback, I love hearing that from you. Thanks very much. Goodbye.